Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are happy to be joined today by Bill Kennedy, Dori Drachman, and Bob Haring-Smith from the Peterborough Renewable Energy Planning Team. So, welcome. Thanks for being here with us today.
Welcome, guys.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Thanks for having us.
inviting us.
Absolutely. So if you guys want to start off just by telling the audience, really just the basics, anything you feel that folks should know about PrEP and where it came from and where we're going.
Sure, I can start us out. PrEP resulted directly from a warrant article that was on last year's ballot to ask if Peterborough was willing to commit to a goal of transitioning to 100% renewable energy, specifically 100% renewable electricity by 2030 and 100% renewable heat and transportation by 2050. And then shortly after that passed, and it did so with an overwhelming margin, 74% of the vote, we went to a select board meeting, and the select board at that point asked for the formation of two different committees. One is the Community Power Task Force, and then one is what turned out to be PrEP. And while originally it was going to be an official town committee, we have morphed it into an unofficial committee because there's a lot of people on it. There's about 18 of us, and the logistics of keeping up with all of the right to know notices and all of that would have been pretty difficult with that kind of membership. So
Yeah,
that's
that's big.
how PrEP got
Yeah.
its start.
Yeah. I have a quick question just about the warrant article for clarification. This is
Sure.
is meant to cover all of all residents, everyone in Peterborough, and not just Peterborough town properties and energy usage, correct?
That is correct. It is for everybody, all residents, all businesses, and the municipal buildings as well. It was the warrant article stemmed from a campaign that the Sierra Club has been sponsoring for years called Ready for 100. And at this point, it is an incredibly successful campaign because over a quarter of Americans live in a place that has made these commitments. So we are part of a movement really in the US. The only towns that have made this commitment, however, are in New Hampshire. And so it's mainly been cities and states, but New Hampshire has, I believe, three or four, three, I think, towns that are committed to the 100% renewable goals. Altogether, there are 6 municipalities in New Hampshire that have made those goals.
I should note that once this warrant was passed, the first question that popped into everybody's mind is that, do we have a plan? How are we going to get there?
And
And
actually,
therefore,
in the warrant, it actually specifies that we would create a plan by the end of 2022.
Oh, great.
And that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, before we go any further about PrEP, I'm just a little bit curious, and this might be a better question for Bill since you guys aren't in it. But what's the other committee, the Community Power Group?
well, this is part of the whole process. The Community Power Group is looking into um, aggregating residential electricity usage so that we can take advantage of aggregation, which is now allowed by law. It wasn't allowed last year or the year before, so it's now allowed. And what that allows us to do is then, by aggregating uses, we can get a better price on electricity, but then we can also increase the mix of renewable sources. And the plan is to offer several different tiers and migrate towards that 100% by 2030. So it's in a way, it's a subset of the prep activity.
Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, that is the only part that I've heard of. So I would love to hear more about what prep is up to, because I had those mixed up in my mind.
A lot of people do. It and you can think of community power as one of our strategies to reach this goal. So
You want to add to that, Bob?
No, but I would go back to Zoe's comment or question about whether this is the town government or everyone. And in fact, the town government has been a leader in this area for quite a while.
mhm.
Rodney Bartlett was very interested in increasing the use of renewables. That's why we have the giant solar array at the wastewater treatment plant. We've been doing some data mining on the town, and we estimate that the town buildings get at least 60% of their electricity from renewable sources, whereas probably residences are more on the order of the 20 to 25% that's mandated by New Hampshire law. And
And
at
I
the
can,
same time, according to the town's database, only or a full 88% of Peterborough residences are heated primarily by fossil fuel, and 96% of Peterborough registered vehicles use only fossil fuel for propulsion.
Oh, still at 96% on the
Yes.
vehicle doing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's surprising. I would have thought, it seems like Priuses are all over the place around here.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
But
Yeah.
in fact, they just do a lot of driving, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. They're just out and about more.
I did want to mention that the current administration under Nicole McStay are carrying on that tradition of strong support for renewables. So I feel we're on the right path.
Yeah,
And
that's important to note. Yeah.
and I would just piggyback onto that. That is actually a big piece of why we went with the warrant article, is that we felt like this was a community, both the residents and the administration and the select board were all on the same page with that, and felt like we could uh, really be successful with that and move on to coming up with some very specific ideas about how to move us there.
Right. Now, a
So
couple
tell
things
us a
going
little
on.
bit about the strategy and how do we get to 2030?
Well, let's see.
Difficult.
I am working with the working group that is charged with actually coming up with the plan, and we now have a draft electricity outline. And in that outline, we have broken it down into three sectors: residential, commercial, and municipal, and have different recommendations for all three of those, and then some that will be that will transcend all of them. So, one idea in addition to community power. So, community power is a very large piece of the residential puzzle, because we expect that a lot of the population will automatically be enrolled into that. And so we're really excited to have that piece moving forward in tandem. But in addition, we want to do a number of other things. And the focus on all of these recommendations is actually on what the town can do to incentivize the residents and the businesses. It's not saying to any person or business, you must do this. So, one idea is to ask for an energy audit or an energy usage history to be present at any kind of closing for on a house, or getting any building projects approved, to be able to show the buyer what to expect for their energy usage. The idea being that if the prospective buyer knows that, oh, wow, this is going to be a really leaky house with a very large energy bill, we might not want to buy this house. And it would prove to be an incentive for the sellers to do some more work on the house. So that's one example for the residential sector. An example for the commercial sector is to develop a list of our top 10 solar businesses that we think could really effectively use solar power on their business, and then do a pretty detailed feasibility study for them, and kind of silver platter it, like, say, here, this is what we think you should do, and we can help you do this. So those are a couple of the kinds of ideas that we are thinking about. I can continue, or I can pass the baton.
Well, we'd also like to be able to find ways to help businesses and individuals who want to take any sort of action. We know that there are existing tax credits, there are rebates that are available. We'd like to ferret out any others that might be less well known and make sure that everybody knows about them so they can take advantage of them. We're hoping to be able to put together some sort of fund out of which we could support groups, individuals who want to weatherize their house or undertake an energy, renewable energy project. But a lot of this is very much in the planning stages, and we're still trying to learn more ourselves.
One of the newest working groups that has just started this past week is on financing, because that's become very clear that in order for this plan to really work, there needs to be a way to help individuals with financing, and also to have someone that is able to help folks, both individuals and businesses, to navigate the process to either getting an energy audit and doing some energy efficiency work, or to find a solar installer and figure out the best process for their home. That having someone to physically help them with that is going to be much more effective than just putting out the information. And so we are actively looking at grants and other ways to fund a position to help folks do this. So that's something that we're excited to be exploring.
We know from other towns that we've looked at who have undertaken this kind of work. Hartford, Vermont, for example, has created an energy coordinator position that wound up paying for itself. So the amount of money that the town saved on energy was greater than the salary paid to the energy coordinator, who figured out the various ways in which they could save money on energy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah.
The one thing that we will all admit is that we do not all have the answers. And so we have a very active community input group, and been carrying on what's known as prep talks, mostly hosted out of the library. But they're a hybrid. You can participate on Zoom. So that's one of the avenues. So we've been asking people what their preferences are in terms of energy mix, what they think is important, and that sort of thing. We're seeking answers at this point to help us develop that plan. So,
and the prep talks are kind of at a place where they're kind of pivoting as we have some of the plan drafted to actually get feedback on the particular parts of the plan.
Once we do have more prep talks scheduled, you'll find the the links to sign up for them, to register for them at our website, prepnh.org. And also there is right now is a link to a survey where you can provide input about um, about how we should be organizing this plan.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll make sure that those links are in the show notes.
Oh,
Great.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Zoe, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, so what Bob just mentioned earlier about some of the rebates that are available and weather stripping, not weather stripping,
Weatherizing?
weatherizing. That's the word. Weatherizing and retrofitting. I know that New Hampshire Saves, the rebate plan, was recently just completely gutted and taken off the table. I did see that there is a new bill to reinstate it that won't be subject to some of the same issues that the prior program was subject to. But if that doesn't go through, or even if it does, I'm wondering how you see energy reduction, that kind of thing, being part of the plan, and whether there's a way that we can tackle that on a local level so that we don't have to be subject to the statewide stuff.
You read our minds. And that's
Yeah, I mean,
exactly what we want
reducing
to
energy use is a huge part of the plan. I mean, it's cheaper for everybody, right? If you don't use energy, you don't have to pay for it, so it's free.
Right.
do. The other reason to support energy efficiency is that the overarching goal or the overarching strategy of getting to 100% renewable is to first green up the electricity grid and then run most everything else on that green electricity. So transitioning cars from internal combustion engines to EVs and transitioning the overwhelming number of homes that are heated by oil and propane to mostly electric heat pumps. And certainly there is a role for clean and efficient biomass, but most homes are going to probably go with electricity. And so we really need to reduce the amount of electricity required for any individual part of that, because we're going to be adding so much to the grid as far as the load, because we're going to be electrifying so many of the other sectors. And so it's imperative that we become as efficient as possible. And it's a really happy, synergism that it also is the cheapest way to do it. The cheapest electricity is the electricity you don't use.
Right. Right. And I'm glad you said that, because it's that's really kind of a key detail, and something that I don't think I had my arms around fully, is just this idea that we're going to green the grid and then put everything on the grid. I mean, that's a really interesting point, I think, for people to take away from this, is that because that is tangible, even though we don't have all the answers, and everything. But even just that part, I think, is a little bit further than people sometimes hear, in terms of like, how do we get from A to B,
Right.
and I think you mentioned, Bob, in the in terms of the survey that's on there about people are giving input on energy mixes and stuff like that. For people who haven't necessarily given this a ton of thought in terms of what that would look like what are some of the things that people talk about in terms of how we green the grid, in terms of that split? I mean, are we talking like a lot of hydro mixed with wind, mixed with solar? What's on the table?
Well, certainly hydro, solar, and wind are all on the table, particularly offshore wind. And as part of this, we do want to see more locally generated solar power, as an example. We know that not everybody is in a position to put solar panels on their house, but it is possible to have a project that would make use of community solar, where the solar array would be sited at a convenient location, and a group of people would be able to benefit from the electricity produced by that array.
I can tell you that the municipal campus design that currently working on, where they're going to move the fire station, rebuild the fire station, but it's also going to be a campus that eventually evolve into the police department, renovations of the DPW barn, and the community center. All of those buildings are being sited and fitted for such solar arrays, not only to operate that facility, but to produce additional electricity to allow it for additional town usage. So
And
those are the
it's been
kind of
great to
things.
see. It's been great to see the library come online with their solar array, and of course we have the big Conval array on the roof of the high school.
Just opened, right?
Yeah, and so a lot of what I'm hearing here is to just to kind of put it another way is a lot of kind of decentralized energy generation, right? I mean, it's not just local, but we're not doing a lot of like one big, say, a plant or something but along those lines, and obviously this is a topic that is itself outside of the scope of Peterborough necessarily, but when we're talking about like greening the grid from where it is now, and from coal and natural gas and things like that, and but also with we'll try to add efficiencies and reduce the usage, but with this understanding that ultimately we're going to try to put home heating and vehicles onto the grid. How do you guys feel about the idea of some newer nuclear technology? So, like, even if we rely as much as we can on decentralized, traditional renewables and everything like that, but to really kind of get that bang for it, I mean, we haven't built a nuclear power plant in this country since the 70s, at least. I mean, how I've read a little bit about this and know that while there are risks with nuclear power, it is not as much of a pollutant or CO2 generator as our fossil fuels are, and you get a lot of energy from it.
Can I try that one?
Go for it, Dori.
Yeah.
So, when we decided on our definition of renewable energy, we did not include nuclear. We do see it as, something to keep online. Like, we don't advocate right now closing down Seabrook. But once we get offshore wind up and running, I would advocate for shutting down Seabrook. What we can get from nuclear power gets dwarfed by what we can get from offshore wind. And
Wow.
so,
Okay. I didn't know that.
to me, the focus should be developing offshore wind, and then we don't need to have this discussion.
Okay. Good answer.
Yeah, nuclear might just give you too much bang for your buck.
Right.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I realize. Yeah, it does have that potential. Yeah, sure. All right. Well, hey, we are up against time here. Is there anything else that you guys want to share with the listeners and viewers before we go? Like I said, I will include all the links to everything that you mentioned in the show notes for folks to find you guys. But anything else we want to put out there?
Well, other than the fact that we are going to have a plan available on the ballot this coming spring regarding community power, a plan is being developed as we speak, and the legislature, our citizenry, will be able to vote whether they want to adopt a community power. So that's the only other piece of this whole puzzle that I really wanted to include.
But to just be clear that that's for community power, not for the renewable energy plan. It's the smaller piece.
But it's an important first step.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And keep your eyes out for we have a regular column in the paper, which will appear on the fourth Tuesday of each month. The website, prepnh.org, will have increasing numbers of resources available for people to take advantage of. And of course, the plan as we develop it will be appearing there.
And if there are folks who have expertise in both data and finance, to let us know if you're interested in sharing that expertise with PrEP and joining us in exploring how to use those skills, because we
So
can
Chris
definitely use them.
and Zoe, thanks once again for allowing us to give our perspective on PrEP, huh?
Absolutely. Thank you guys
Yes.
for coming and sharing. Like I said to you, I think this is a beneficial session for our listeners to hear about. I mean, I've learned a lot just sitting here just
Me
now.
too.
So I suspect there'll be a lot of folks learning some new things here
That'll be
from
great.
this
Thank you.
discussion.
And
So,
we
Yeah.
Thanks
would
very much.
love to be
Thank you.
able to present the community power segment of this and maybe some future episode.
yeah, please.
Um,
Yeah, please come. Yeah, by all means.
Okay,
We'd love to do that. Yeah, we can set
great.
that up anytime.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
excellent. Well, thank you all for your work. It's I know it's hard work to kind of start a task force like this from scratch and tackle such a huge issue. So
Thank
it
you.
is appreciated, and it really was great to hear from you all today.
Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you so
Thanks a lot.
much.
See you
All
now,
right,
Zoe.
take care.